Hello, and welcome back to the Seeing Better podcast. This is Shelby here, and it's currently Sunday, so I am enjoying a lovely day. It's a bit overcast, and I thought it would be a perfect day to record because I have tomorrow off for President's Day, and I'm just in the mood to podcast. So I took inspiration from one of the top listened to podcasts that I've done so far, which was the 5 best business books of all time, and am now doing a similar version, but for self-help books. So if that's of interest, this one's for you. These are at different levels and different stages. So I'll go through which books are best for what type of learner and discuss why they made it into my top 5. There are so many books that I've read throughout the past couple of years, but I can safely say that these are 5 of the most impactful. As you probably know, having listened to this podcast, or if you're new, welcome. One of the key themes that I have that I want to continue to reiterate throughout every podcast and every episode is that 80/20 is a concept that can lend itself to so many different things and basically every part of your life. And that includes the content that you can consume. I have read hundreds of books at this point, but I can safely say that only 20% have made it into my everyday life. And the material that was most impactful sticks out to me. And these 5 books represent just that. So let's take it back a few years ago when I had my, let's call it spiritual awakening. I was living in Boston at the time, going to school, and originally being from California, was dealing with what I now know to be SAD, or seasonal affective disorder. I thought I was going to beat it. I actually didn't mind the cold so much, but what I realized that I really was being impacted by was the no sun. And there were a couple of periods of months that I was feeling really down and out and actually depressed. And I can safely say that now, but it was one of the lowest points in my life. I had recently ended my co-op experience at Reebok, which was one of the best parts of my life. And going back to school, I hit a bit of a low because I was so inspired by what I was doing there and the people that I was working with that I couldn't bear the thought that I would just be going to school again. But at this point, I knew that I had to make a change. I couldn't just continue to stay in my room and avoid some of those feelings that I was experiencing at the time, but I really had the opportunity to transform my life. And some of those aspects came through the books that I was reading and also the people that I was surrounding myself with. So while I wasn't necessarily in the space where my friends or my family were speaking about some of these concepts, I was able to immerse myself with teachers such as Gabby Bernstein, Dr. Joe Dispenza, amongst other people, Tony Robbins, and learn about them and their experiences so I could become that person eventually, that I could become the person that could walk through their life and be happy at some point. This also involved me going to therapy, and therapy is a different topic for another day, but I had begun to go to therapy, and in tandem was reading these books that really allowed me to think in a different way, that I didn't have to just accept what was laid out in front of me and that I could really create my own life. So this is when the floodgates open. Now that was 6 years ago, so I do have some knowledge that I've acquired along the way, but I would like to introduce you to the 5 best self-help books that I've read thus far, having read over hundreds of books. If you throw out a name of a book that has been in the top 10 of this category, I've probably read it. Basically read all of them. Some of them are snake oil, and not all of the books are as impactful as others. So I wanted to share with you the best of the best in this category. Now, I have 2 tips that I'd like to share before we get into the actual list, and that is to try to read before bed if you can. And this advice I know has been given many, many times. But if you're not already in the habit of reading before bed, try to think of why that is. Are you scrolling on your phone? I'm going to guess that's probably the reason. Do you have a lot of thoughts circling in your brain that you don't know where to put them? Or are you just bored? I don't know what it could be, but I would assume that it's probably that you're scrolling on your phone. Now think about your future self, the person that you want to see in 5 to 10 years. Would that person be scrolling on their phone, or would they be reading before bed, thinking about really deep concepts and thinking about the person that they want to be in the next day? I want to say that if you're listening to this, your choice would probably be the latter. Reading before bed has absolutely changed my life. I've been able to read 10x more books because of it, but also it allows the words from these books that hopefully are from people who you admire and who have their best interest in mind, or your best interest in mind, rather. Allow these words to sink into your subconscious in a way that you can go to bed having ingested some positive content versus maybe a very deep and dark TV show, which I feel like all the shows that are popular now are very violent or they have negative undertones. And also succumbing to other people's content on social media that you cannot control. And that sometimes also has other implications in your subconscious. So reading before bed really allows you to let those words sink in a way that you wouldn't have otherwise, and that hopefully is better for you than watching a TV show or scrolling on your phone. Another way that I love to read before bed is to listen to either classical music, binaural beats, or 528 hertz music. This just elevates the experience and really gets you centered and focused on the reading portion. So if you have trouble focusing or calming down your brain, I would say this is one of the great ways to be able to do that and to sink even deeper. Now, let's get into the list. So, number 1, if you had to take away one book from this entire list, this is going to be the one. This is the one that changed my entire life and my entire trajectory ever since I read it. So, the book is The Universe Has Your Back by Gabby Bernstein. The subtitle is Transform Fear to Faith, and that is exactly what it did for me. This book is so unique because I think the title has so much power. And it's probably not going to be a message that will find an individual at every part of their life, but it will find them at the right time. And that it did for me. So when I was in that dark time that I had mentioned 6 years ago, I began to become more interested in learning how I could change my situation and improve my outlook. And this was one of the books that came across my desk, or that I probably ended up purchasing from some bookstore, and was able to dive into the topic of spirituality and self-help. And lo and behold, 6 years later, still very much in that vein and in that line of thinking. So The Universe Has Your Back. If you're thinking of getting into this genre, if you want to read one of the best books in this category, absolutely, this is going to be one that you're going to be reading. Now, like I said, some of the material may feel a little bit deep and might be confronting for you, but in the best way possible. So some of the themes included in this book, and it's a New York Times bestseller, so I'm sure that you've seen it at some point, but a few of the themes are unleashing the greatest power that's within you and that might be blocked, releasing the blocks to your greatest desires, letting go of the need to control those desires so you can relax into a sense of certainty and freedom. I mean, who doesn't want that? Making the shift from fear to faith and living in faith for the rest of your life. This was the tipping point for me to dive into a spirituality practice of my own understanding. Before that, I had thought that spirituality just meant you had to be part of a religion and you had to have a dogmatic approach to faith. However, I've learned that that is absolutely not the case, and that it's a la carte menu. You can take what you want and leave what you don't. If you don't feel that way, I respect your opinion, but that's just my opinion on this topic, and it's changed my life for the better. I can't say enough good things about it. Gabby as a person is also an amazing person to follow. She has a coaching app and also has, I believe, 11 other books. So if this one doesn't necessarily speak to you, I'm sure one of the other ones would. Number 2 is also by Gabby. I couldn't just pick one because I've read all of her books and am a very big fan. I also think her books are digestible for a multitude of different people. So if you're looking for an entryway into some of these concepts, I would say she breaks it down very eloquently and in a way that's digestible and manageable for many, many different walks of life. So number 2 is Super Attractor by Gabby Bernstein. And the name basically explains itself, but this is a method for manifesting a life beyond your wildest dreams. If you're looking for a way to get into manifesting that is simple, easy, and able to be integrated into your life, this is for you. I read and pre-ordered this book back in 2019 when I had graduated from college and moved back home with my parents. I felt very out of control and didn't know where to begin because I wanted a job at the time that was going to light me up and begin my journey. But I was interviewing every week, hundreds of interviews, and wasn't getting anything that I wanted. So I really wanted to put myself back in the driver's seat to find what I wanted to do in my life and begin manifesting. And ultimately, after reading this book, which I want to say was in December of 2019, I had interviewed and began working at L'Oreal, which was about 4 years ago to the date. So I can be a testament of the power of manifesting in this book. I also went to the LA tour stop when she had come to town in 2019. So I drove up to LA all by myself and was able to immerse myself in the moment even more having been there. And she has different podcast episodes and YouTube videos that was taped actually from that day. So if you want to learn more and maybe you're not ready to dive into the book, you can also find her on Instagram, TikTok, her app, and YouTube, all the things. She's worked with all the greats and anybody, you name it. Oprah, her teacher was also Dr. Wayne Dyer, who's very well respected in the space. So she has so much legitimacy to bring to the space. It seems like everyone's talking about manifesting now, but she was one of the very early adopters and who has been speaking about it for nearly 15, 20 years, something like that. I was able to actually purchase the book with my LA tour stop ticket, and there were 2 extra copies that I gave to other people. So I was able to spread the word as well. So if you're looking for where to find Super Attractor, I'm sure it's at your local bookstore. It's a very popular book, but also look on your Spotify app. If you have premium, you can also listen to Super Attractor or any of the other books on audio as well for free with your subscription for Spotify Premium, if you don't want to read the physical book, that is. So some of the main themes in this book are to do less and attract more. As you know, that's one of my life's mottos. I can't express how much this has helped me as somebody who overcompensates regularly and who is a hypervigilant person by nature. I've learned to change some of those tendencies in order to be in that receptive mode and actually receive more in my life and more of what I know is for the highest and best. Also, you can learn to relax and trust that what you desire is on the way. So if you're one of those people that's also impatient, it will teach you how to do that. Know that spiritual guidance is available to you at all times and feel a sense of awe each day as you witness miracles unfold. How beautiful. So if you're in the market for something manifesting related, absolutely go to Super Attractor. That's going to be your key and your resource to getting there. Number 3 is the Success Principles by Jack Canfield. Now, this one is a little bit less spiritual, a little bit more self-help / business related. Jack Canfield is a public speaker and a personal development professional who created the Chicken Soup books. So this book is a bit more dense. Gabby's books are a little bit lighter and a little bit shorter as well. But the Success Principles, if you are brand new to this concept and brand new to self-development, is going to be your end-all be-all resource for anything spiritual and self-help related. So some of the themes that are included in this book, which I found to be very helpful, and I had read after I had began my spiritual journey, but still felt to be true, was number 1, to take ultimate responsibility for your life. So that means taking responsibility of everything that you experience and everything that you think. That's really hard for people to hear, especially if they're not in the right spot to listen to that. However, I've found that that is one of the key pieces to being successful in all areas of life is to take radical responsibility for who you are and what you bring to the table, and ultimately the outcomes that you are creating. He has this equation that breaks it down really simply, and that is that the event plus the response equals the outcome. So it helps sometimes to step back and just think about things very plainly at times instead of bringing the emotion into this. So let's give this concept an example. So let's say that there was a miscommunication that you had at work this week and you thought that somebody was working on something, but they were not. The response that is that you were snippy with them and you had decided to blame it on them. The outcome is that you don't have what you wanted to get done, and you also don't feel really great about your working relationship. But what if you took the responsibility to say, hey, that was my miss. I did not make things clear enough. Next time I'm going to do it better. Imagine what the outcome could be in that scenario. Another lesson from this book is to act with intention. When I first started this journey, I thought that phrase was a little hooey and didn't really sink in the way that it does now. But I can say that acting with intention, once you're open to that concept, you can't unsee it. I act with intention with nearly everything I do in my life. And when I have a day when I feel a little bit less conscious, I'm aware of it and I course correct. So perhaps I went through a day where I felt really overwhelmed with work and I had too many things on my plate that I couldn't be present. Well, the next day, I'm going to try to minimize the amount of meetings I have, because meetings does not always equal output and progressive output. And I'm going to be setting some intentions for how I want to be in those said meetings, the ones that I am in. Acting with intention, once you can light up to that, will absolutely change your life. And number 3 and final for this book is to use feedback to your advantage. When I heard the word feedback originally a couple years ago, I thought that just meant I was in trouble. And I'm sure that there are some people on this call as well, or this podcast, that had a visceral reaction to hearing the word feedback. But feedback is just information. If, again, you take the emotion out of it and think of it more objectively, feedback is information for how you can improve. That's simply what it is. So now when I go into things like year-end reviews or hearing different feedback from my business coach or any other places for that matter, I find it to be more interesting. So I've changed my perspective here. Instead of impending doom feelings about, oh, if I receive feedback, that means that I'm doing something wrong, and in turn, I'm something wrong, I find it to just be a critical piece of information that I can integrate into my practice with whatever this looks like and make it better. And if that feedback pertains to your 20%, so the 20% of the inputs that get you 80% of the outputs, let's say that you're a public speaker. If you improve your public speaking practice by 20% and integrate that critical feedback from people who you respect, imagine how much you can produce because of it. That's one of the keys to success. And I don't know if that's always put in those terms, but I can safely say that if you maximize your potential within your 20%, within your zone of genius, within that Dharma potential, that space of magic, you can create miracles on your own. So the success principles, if you're somebody who is a little bit more logical in nature, who's interested in business, but who also wants to open themselves up to some self-help principles, I would highly recommend this one. This one's going to be on my shelf for life. Number 4 is Be Your Future Self Now by Benjamin Hardy. Dr. Benjamin Hardy is an organizational psychologist and somebody who I really respect. His views are radical while also being so sense-driven. I find that when he speaks, he's so clear, and he's somebody that I look up to when I create these types of podcast topics. And this book is essentially exactly what it sounds like. So I don't think I need to get into the details of that much as we need to talk about the overarching big idea, which is be your future self. So being your future self is acting as if you're that person today. So, how can you bring the future to you by reverse engineering some of those aspects? So, if your future self is somebody who goes to the gym every day, how can you begin to become that person? Can you, at least in Atomic Habits, what they recommend, which is literally just show up at the gym. Could you just show up at the gym for the next 30 days? You don't even have to do a push up or anything. You could just show up at the gym and then you're somebody who goes to the gym. After those 30 days, maybe you then integrate going into the sauna and then you're somebody who goes to the gym and also goes to the sauna. And imagine if you begin to stack some of those habits where you can become who you can become in the next couple of months or years. It's incredible. He has an example from Mr. Beast, who is one of the most popular YouTubes, I believe, at this point. And he uses Mr. Beast as a case study because Mr. Beast, I believe, is rather young. He's in his 20s, I want to say. And he created a video in his early 20s or late teens, whatever, that said, I'm going to have this amount of followers and this amount of money by this date. And he did it. He published that video and he was so vulnerable enough to speak about the future self that he was going after that inherently created accountability. So Mr. Beast is a perfect example if you're looking for that future self thinking and how to integrate it into your own life. He's one of those people that I would definitely turn to learn more about it. Fun fact is that I also almost named this podcast Future Selfing because I was so inspired by this concept and by this big idea. And I still stand behind being your future self every day. One of those ways is through meditation. Meditation will absolutely transform your life if you don't already do it. And it's not just to sit there and to breathe. I think that's something that people get wrong about meditation, and that is just that you need to clear your thoughts and there's nothing going on and there's no intention behind just sitting. Now, that sometimes is exactly what you need. I'm not gonna negate that fact. However, if you're able to bring some of these insights into your meditation practice, you will see your life change before your eyes. And this is a perfect segue into the next and final book that I recommend as part of the 5 best self-help books of all time, and that is Becoming Supernatural by Dr. Joe Dispenza. Dr. Joe Dispenza is a transformational leader and somebody who, if you have not heard about, I highly recommend that you go and research him and his learnings. This is for more of the advanced learners, I won't lie. His book, Becoming Supernatural, is for the people who want to go deep, and I mean really deep, like 5D deep. It's actually mind-blowing. But if you are one of those people who's ready to go there, Becoming Supernatural will change your life, will change the course of how you look at everything. And if you like science, this is especially good for you because he brings in the energy piece and also some of the brain, the neurology that goes behind meditation. So he does have a meditation practice that he guides through the book, and that is to go deep into the quantum field. So these are some of the concepts that are in his book. I don't know if any of these other ones have the word quantum in them, but he is going there. So if you're open to that, if you're looking for a quantum leap in your life, Dr. Joe Dispenza can get you there. He has this philosophy that everything is matter and energy, and I think many of us also hold that same philosophy. But if you're able to change your energy, you can change your life. So he has this saying that your personality is your personal reality. When you change your personality, everything changes. And when you go that deep into the quantum when you're meditating, you can create any possibility that you see in your mind's eye. He has another book called You Are the Placebo. So if you're specifically looking for spirituality, meditation, mind transformation when it comes to the physical body, You Are the Placebo is another great resource for that. But all in all, I can say that if you're open to reading this book, your life will never look the same. You will see life as no body, no time, no one. Anything is possible, and you can do it. You can use meditation to change your entire outer world by changing your inner world. And there's a field of infinite possibilities that is out there that you have the potential to reach. It's just about getting over that fear and those points of misalignment to get there. And I'm so proud to say that ever since reading that book, I have been able to get deeper and deeper into that ideology and that concept. Now I have my own meditation practice, but I have gleaned many insights from that book in particular about how meditation is not just about spirituality or intangible concepts. It's actually about science. And there are science-based facts that are linked to this practice and how you can change the world. Change your life, change your world. Change the inside and you will change the outside. Meditation obviously gets me super excited. So this will be something I will continue to hit home on, but I hope that this has inspired you to dig a little bit deeper into what goes on in your internal life and your internal mind and body, feeling into who you are and experiencing what life can offer. It doesn't always have to just be the same old every day, going to work, being unconscious. There is a space where you can live in full color and you'll be, not to be cheesy, but seeing better. Once you go there, you can't unsee what you've just seen. I can safely say that after 6 years of living with these principles, I am a completely different person. I used to be somebody who was kind of edgy and angry. I think I, on the outside, was lit up by some things, but when there was something that didn't go my way, it really affected me. And I don't know what that exactly came from, if that was from my childhood experiences or trauma or potentially even the makeup of my brain. But it's so interesting that I didn't have to do anything drastic to get there. I just had to get more curious. And that has been through reading, it's been through meditation, it's been through becoming active and moving my body every day. It's been through therapy. It's been through introspection and journaling. And while it can seem overwhelming at times, I want to help break it down into some simple and digestible tips because there are so many pieces of content out there that are overwhelming, and I do not want to do that. So I hope that by sharing the 5 best self-help books of all time, you can find the ones that will make the most impact to you in your daily life. Wow. Okay. I am always out of breath here, so I'm going to hop off, but thank you for listening. If you made it this far, thank you so much. It does not go unnoticed. If you would be able to subscribe and leave a review, I would greatly appreciate it. And head over to the podcast email. I think it's seeingbetterpod@gmail.com. It is. And leave me some comments and feedback about how you've been experiencing this podcast, what I can do better, what kind of topics you want to hear, all the things. I'm receiving that information with open arms. All right. Thank you for listening, and I hope you'll be seeing better. Thank you. Bye.